Hey, this is Neil Bawa, the mad scientist of multifamily, and you're listening to the Mailbox Money Show with Bronson Hill.
All right, so welcome to the Mailbox Money Show. I am Bronson Hill, and I am excited that you are here because we've got Dave Wolcott, a good friend of mine, who is doing some amazing stuff with high net worth, ultra net worth. And it's amazing when you get in and all the stuff that we learned when we were young about getting a job with benefits and a pension and going to school and all this stuff. Like we realize as we get older, it may not be correct, or it may be something that gets us wealthy, but it won't keep us wealthy. It won't keep us at a place of freedom. And there's a saying that, why there's a book actually out there that says why A students end up working for C students, right? And it's because the C students are more willing to take risks. They're more willing to learn. So I hope you get a lot out of this interview. I really enjoyed it. It was great. Dave's just a super abundant guy, also into personal development, which I found is a huge thing. If you're trying to grow your wealth, if you grow yourself and your personal development, you'll see just so many benefits in your life, and you'll just be a much happier, more healthy person. So hope you enjoy this interview. All right, welcome to the Mailbox Money Show. Dave, how you doing today?
Doing awesome. Thanks, Bronson.
Hey, it's really good to have you, man. I know we connected recently, and I love what you're doing. I feel like we've got a lot of synergies of things that we love solving problems for wealthy people or helping people become wealthy and really using those strategies of the ultra wealthy to help not get back a lot of what you make, especially with taxes and other things. I know you talk about that, but tell us a little bit about your background. I know a little bit of your story, and you were in the military, and just talk to us a little bit about how you got to be doing what you're doing now with Pantheon Investments.
Yeah, sure. So, give you a little bit of background around my journey. And it all started, I was raised in a middle class family in Connecticut. And I was taught that the recipe for success was to go to school, get good grades, you're going to get a job, and life would just work out. Right. So, kind of followed down that path, went to school in DC, and then did the ROTC program. Because I really wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to serve my country. Spent the next 4 years in the Marine Corps, which was a phenomenal experience. I learned things you just don't learn anywhere else, things such as leadership, teamwork, and integrity. And then after I transitioned from the Marines, I got into the corporate world in the tech industry. And I quickly got really frustrated, Bronson, with just losing that sense of mission that
Yeah.
was, so driving me in the Marines. And it was just such a shift for me. And then at the same time, my wife and I started raising a family. We had a toddler running around. And then on October 24th, 2000, we literally welcomed triplets into the world and quadrupled the size of our family. So
That's exponential growth right there,
it's
man. You're just having
exponential
exponential
growth,
growth in your
right?
life.
But you can imagine, right? I mean, the first thing that was actually, I mean, once I got past the shock, the biggest thing I was thinking about practically was, how am I going to create financial security for my family, right? Which was everything to me. And now the goalposts just got moved. I can't even see the goalposts anymore. They're, a
Yeah.
few miles down the field, right? So at that point, I went to see my financial planner, and he told me the same thing that every other one did was, oh, you've got kids, no problem. You can put your money in these things called 529 plans. Just max out your 401k at work, right? And
Right.
just invest in the stock market, dollar cost average, you'll be fine, right? And so I was doing the math and everything, and it just didn't make sense for me, right? And it was right then that I just knew that, the top 1% were not building their wealth as a retail investor in the stock market. So keep in mind, this is back in now in 2000. So I went on this obsessive journey to start figuring out how are the ultra wealthy actually building wealth, right? So I looked under every rock. I was reading books. I was meeting people. I was doing a lot of network trying to increase my relationship capital. I started investing in alternative assets before syndications were even popular, just getting into private placement opportunities, everything in like oil and gas, actually single family. Uh, we did raw land, did office, did multifamily, just all kinds of different asset classes. And over that time, that span of 20 years, I built some businesses on the tech side as well, made a complete exit. And I really wanted to now create all of the things that I learned in those 20 years of experiences. So to create that in Pantheon and really help other people discover this holistic wealth strategy that I really built a framework around.
Yeah, that's great. No, I think a lot of people's journeys are similar. A lot of stories I've heard on the show and just in general that we start out, with a goal like, hey, I gotta save money for my kids. I want to quit my job. I want to do these things, and then so we get advice. And I was a registered investment advisor for a few years, and I call myself an RIA now, but it's a recovering investment advisor. So I'm no longer registered, but I'm still
Yeah.
recovering. But it's just that the advice that people are given and that we're told to give when I was doing that, it's just people never became wealthy doing that. And again, I saw an interview recently with somebody who's interviewing. It was a guy who was worth over $100 million, and he said, he's talked with a lot of billionaires, and he said they all don't do the diversification, invest in stocks, whatever. They all find some great investment, and they basically they invest in their business and they develop it that way. But it's just amazing that once you start developing some skills and some learning in this area, it's almost shocking. And Henry Ford even has a quote where he's like, if the general public understood the financial system, there'd be rioting in the streets tomorrow or something like that. Like, it's just, we have no clue. We're not really taught this stuff in school. But there are ways to get around it. And that's why with your platform, with Pantheon, what you're doing, you've got infinite banking, you've got a lot of these different strategies that really help people to grow and preserve wealth. What are some of the asset classes that you found to be really interesting for high net worth people? And you work with a lot of ultra, high net worth and stuff. What are some things that you've seen are like, oh, this is something that we really like from an investment standpoint that really helps people as far as investing into?
Yeah, so we focus a lot on portfolio allocation and building out our investment thesis, Bronson. Once you get into the space and start seeing, deals and different syndications, you'll all of a sudden start seeing deals all over the place, and you're trying to
Yeah.
figure out, hey, which one is right. And that's part of the reason why wrote my book as well, The Holistic Wealth Strategy, so you can actually, create a strategy first, right? That supports your vision and where you're actually headed. Because if you don't have a target, you're going to miss it every time. So
Yeah.
creating that vision for yourself before you start getting into the mechanics of actual investments, right? Because the investments, as long as you find the right operator, are going to fill certain things. So we're typically investing, like billionaires do, with asymmetric type of focus where it's the lowest amount of risk, highest amount of yield. But we also only focus on three core sectors, which are real estate, energy, and private equity and private debt. And the reason we do that is because there's focus around number one, decreasing your number one biggest expense that you have in life, which is taxes. So trying to mitigate some of those. Energy, investing in oil and gas. A lot of people don't realize you can offset 100% of your active income investing in that, as well as getting passive income. So that's a very efficient play there. Real estate, all of your listeners really understand real estate, but we are looking for very unique type of opportunities, right? We're doing JVs with family offices, sometimes getting access to opportunities that might be, only, people playing at the institutional level, but we're able to kind of come in with our relationship, with our reputation, and get in and get access, and then bring that to our investors.
Yeah.
And then we also have a merchant cash advance fund, which is another big play that a lot of billionaires have been focusing on, trying to take advantage of the banking system and all the shortcomings in banking these days, and doing short-term lending and then getting, double-digit returns on a cash flow basis from that.
Yeah, it's great to have multiple strategies, and those are things we're really passionate about too. I mean, my background before I started working with Bronson Equity and in our stuff we do with real estate and other things was in medical sales, and so I worked with a lot of physicians. And I know for high earners, if somebody makes, especially in California, they're making, sometimes a million or millions of dollars, but they're paying 50% in taxes, especially because of the state taxes as well. And so if you can find ways to reduce that and people don't realize like, wow, I actually can reduce ordinary income through energy or even, the real estate professional designation. If somebody, maybe their spouse could become one or something, there's different ways to do it. That's really great. So we could talk a lot about that. Let's talk for a minute about real estate. I know rates have risen a lot the last couple of years. We're not seeing a lot of things that are providing cash flow for investors. Are you seeing any good deals out there in real estate? And what are you, I guess obviously it depends on people's goals and kind of what they're looking for, whether it's appreciation or cash flow. But are you seeing what's your kind of opinion on where real estate sits right now? And again, that's a very broad question, and real estate has so many different assets and sub assets and different things as well. But talk to us about what you're seeing there as from an investment standpoint.
Well, we've been extremely cautious on the multifamily side because even operators saying that, hey, we're buying this asset on a discount right now, we still think it's overpriced. And
Right.
we actually have a portfolio manager on our team who is also a former financial advisor. So we are able to provide extensive due diligence on our opportunities. So we say no to 99% of the deals that come across our desk. And we're unique. We're not looking to do a deal every month and have crazy kind of deal flow. But when we have a deal come across, it's fully vetted. And again, super unique with those asymmetric returns. And, just to give you an example, our latest opportunity was actually a ground up development build to rent. Which there's
Wow.
only 2 states in the country right now. It's Florida and Texas, where you can do a build to rent. So this property is in Fort Lauderdale. So we're partnering with a family office and a developer to build a 380 unit condo building. And one of the really unique things is that they're pre-selling the units so that by providing basically free equity into the deal, you can get outsized returns.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So I think build to rent's a very interesting space. So in our business, I've had over 2,000 one-on-one phone calls with high net worth investors. I know you're working with the ultra wealthy as well. Talk to us a little bit about, I know sometimes I'll have a physician who's worth $5 million who owns his own practice and is like just only done stocks and bonds and has a money guy who works for one of the big Wall Street banks or, as an investment advisor. What do you think is like, what are kind of the first few steps someone like that's like, oh, I should look at this world of alternative assets and kind of almost as like Neo in the Matrix has taken the red pill and like, maybe this Wall Street thing isn't really serving my best interest. Like, what do you think are the next few steps someone should do when they're getting started looking kind of outside of the traditional route?
Yeah, Bronson, we have actually a virtual family office. And on our initial onboarding session, we spend time with, entrepreneurs, high income individuals, and really, again, really try to understand their vision statement first and foremost. I think a lot of people kind of miss that, right? And it's so important. We always do that in businesses, but oftentimes we're too busy in life to just focus on what am I really looking for? Am I trying to create more time? To spend with my family in life, or do I want to have more time to go travel, or maybe it's philanthropic, right? Some cause that you're really burning to. So once you can really understand that, then the investor can get behind, okay, what are the vehicles that we can choose to put into a bucket to support that. But if you break it down and you start to look at portfolio analysis, I've talked with Michael Sonnenfeld from Tiger 21, right? And they talk about their portfolio allocation. And,
Right.
what's unique, right, is, only about 22% is actually invested by ultra high net worth investors into public equities. So what does that tell you? The 1/10 of the 1% are not investing in the roller coaster. They don't have that much exposure, right? They're also investing in their businesses and private equity and real estate and other assets, right? That can get you a 3-dimensional return versus a 1-dimensional return in the stock market.
Yeah, that's great. No, I think that's a great way to look at just to continue to look outside the box and see, what are some things that maybe I wasn't brought up with or wasn't kind of trained in or just wasn't kind of normal to look at. But again, the more, I talk about this in my book where it's like that we look at traditional finance and we realize like it's just not really there to serve people their needs that they would need very well. Let's talk for a minute about
Well,
private. Good.
yeah, I mean, let me just say,
Yeah.
Bronson, right? I mean, if you're trying to be 1% or you are 1%, why are you taking advice from 99 percenter,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You need a completely different strategy. You need a completely different set of advisors.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I remember I heard Robert Kiyosaki recently, that the older he gets, the more passionate he gets and the more intense he can get sometimes. But every one time he's just like, stop listening to poor people kind of thing. Sometimes the strategy that people use to get wealthy is not the traditional strategy that we're taught or kind of the main thing is.
Right.
Um,
And in my book, right, the holistic wealth strategy, that's exactly why we have the first phase is actually mindset, right? It's
yeah.
all about you and actually how you think, right? Because so many of us have limiting beliefs based on where we were raised, right? Just like I talked about my story, right? All of these challenges, being in a middle class environment and limitations really in your thinking. But once you can actually change your thinking, you can create your vision statement, you can create goals and habits that support your vision. It's amazing, what's actually possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think one thing I really resonate with you, Dave, is that you're very much a vision alignment person where you're doing something, you want your family, your health, your goals, your spirituality, everything to line up with what you're trying to do. And I think that's for a lot of people, you don't have that intuitively. That's something that's got to be developed. But if we're not getting the results that we want, we have to step back and say, well, what's the result that we really want? What do we really want in life? And taking the time to do that is really valuable. So I love that you have a process for that. I want to come back to that thought on personal development. Talk to us a little bit about private equity. That's something that's become a lot more interesting to me lately, just seeing that, there are great businesses out there that will sell, even small businesses, particularly sell sometimes for 1 to 3 times earnings or 5 times earnings, or just something that's a pretty low multiple compared to how, if things were publicly traded, how they would be sold for. And typically there's a lot more cash in a business like this. And that's one thing we've really, in the last couple of years, we've tended to push more things that are business related or are cash flow related, because a lot of real estate is not cash flowing. Even it may cash flow one day, and we've got some development projects and other things. But talk to us about private equity and kind of what you guys are doing in that space and what you're seeing there.
Yeah, I mean, we're not investing specifically, say, in small businesses in that, PE model, right? That's buying, small to mid-size enterprises, trying to optimize them and things. But, one of the ones I had mentioned earlier was the merchant cash advance business,
Yeah,
right? And this industry is actually growing at over 20% combined annual growth rate. And it started, inside of 20 years ago, and it was at zero, right? And what's so unique is, let's say you have a small business like a restaurant owner. He's got 4 different locations doing really well. He wants to go ahead and open up that 5th location. Well, he goes to a bank and it might take 6 months to get funding if he actually does. Well,
yeah,
we can do underwriting really quickly, have him funded inside of a week or potentially even days. There's personal guarantees on the actual lending, right? The funds that he gets. And then that's paid back to us at an average loan cycle of only 7 months at a 34% return. So, I mean, you
wow,
want to talk about, velocity and cash flow. And so as soon as we take back that loan, right, we bring it right back into the fund and then start loaning it out to the next deal. So it creates this amazing amount of velocity. And from a risk perspective, right, we never take more than a 5% position in any different loan. And then we're also invested in over 20 different industries at the same time.
yeah, amazing, amazing. So you said like as a 30% over 30% annualized return when you look at that.
Yeah,
It's
that's what's
incredible.
coming in. Yeah,
That's
it's
incredible.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
amazing.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, it's just like hard money lending. If you think about it, it's like
Yeah,
hard money lending, right? In real estate. And, businesses are paying a premium on that money. But think about it as a business owner. It's like, hey, if I can't get funded by the bank, how am I going to grow my business? Well, here is an alternative source that I can get funding. I'm going to pay the premium, but look, I'll pay this thing off in 7 months. And now I have a whole new revenue stream. Right. So we
Yeah.
really are helping, small business owners with that solution. And you're going to continue to see a big rise in this whole alternative lending space.
Yeah, it's interesting how this is something we think, and I noticed this with our ATM fund because it's like a 20, almost a 25% cash on cash, and people are like, that's just crazy. Like, how can you, projected cash on cash? But like 10% of the US population doesn't have a bank account, right? And so there's over 30 million people that are just operating in cash using prepaid debit cards. And so it's the same as what you're talking about. It's like, well, I'm not in that position of a business needing capital, but if you don't have capital as a business, you're either out of commission or you're totally unable to expand. And so I actually have a friend who called me today who's a psychologist, and they have a program that if you are a federal employee, you have to like front a certain amount of your. There's a way he has to have come up with $40,000 for like 2 or 3 months, and then they pay it back or they pay it off or they pay off a certain amount of his loan. So he kind of pays it up front, but he's trying to figure out how he's going to finance this, right? So he's like looking at like 15% annualized or higher. It's just there's all these loans out there, but none of them are really favorable. But I think it's when interest rates are higher, people just need cash, and if you can't have cash, you can't grow a business, you can't operate, you can't even really run your life. And so I think having alternatives like this can be super powerful. So that's really awesome. Let's talk for a minute. Let's talk for a couple minutes about personal development. I know you're a big personal development, longevity, Peter Attia, all the different stuff, and it's been said. I think Mark Twain said the first wealth is health. Um, Talk to us a little bit about kind of the personal development as well as the longevity. Maybe you can start with personal development, and maybe let's start there. Let's talk a little bit about developing a vision for yourself, your affirmations, things that you do, like you and I both do in the morning, and how has that changed your life, and how has that developed over the years as a practice for you?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right, Bronson? Right. We talk about passive investing, mailbox money, right? All
Ah,
of this stuff. But once you start to actually unpack that, if I told you I could give you $1 million in passive income a year,
yes,
how is that
please.
going to change your life?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
How is that going to change your life? Right? And we just did this amazing experience at our annual retreat for our mastermind group, where we did a wealth vision mind mapping exercise. And we started at the center of the piece of paper where people could write down their wealth vision and what that wealth vision really looked like to them, and then start building off of that, like, well, what's really important to you? If I gave you $1 billion today or 1 million in passive income, what are you going to focus on? Is that going to be more time? Is that going to be investing in your family, right? Maybe it's creating more purpose. But really, ultimately, as Dan Sullivan likes to talk about, it's really focused on 4 freedoms in your life that you're looking for, right? Which is freedom of money, to be able to create a future that's always bigger than your past. It's freedom of purpose, to wake up every day and be fascinated and motivated by the work that you're doing. It's about freedom of relationships, choosing who you want to work with and not work with, right? And
Mhm.
continuing to grow, right? So having all of these freedoms is really the basis to this. And then making this big paradigm shift to understand that we're doing all this investing in different asset classes and all of this, but you really have to make the shift to understand that you are your greatest asset, bar none. Every time I invest in my health, my relationships, my education, um, whatever it is, right? I can see 100x return on those things that I do. So for me, I'm constantly looking to make psychological upgrades as well as physical upgrades with all of the investments that I can do. So I just did stem cell therapy, for instance, 5 weeks ago on my knees, and it's unbelievable. I mean, I've had
Mm.
surgery in both knees before, had some limitations from Ironman and running, too many
Sure.
marathons back in the day. And I mean, it's just phenomenal, right? But a lot
Yeah.
of people might say they might have limiting beliefs that say, hey, that doesn't work, or my orthopedic doctor says that's sketch, or maybe you don't have the resources to do something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just probably added another 20 years to my knees that I can go out, and do more things. I'm involved. Not only do we run a mastermind, but I invest myself in, some of the top ones in the country as well, right? So I can be exposed to new ideas, new people, right? New thoughts, and constantly growing. So anytime you have an opportunity to invest in yourself, that's where you're going to get the biggest ROI.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think Warren Buffett says too, the best investment you can make is in yourself, right? Investing in your own education, investing in who you are. Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, it applies in every area of life, right? We're not just people will say, "Hey, I want financial freedom," but it's like, what do you really want? Maybe you want time freedom, you want to travel, you want to have, and so it exists in other things. Sometimes we'll say we want one thing when really it's something else. But um, my background in the medical field, I'd see people that were 60 and they were on like death's door, and it's like, man, if you just taken care of yourself and not been overweight and not been a smoker or whatever, like they would have 20 plus years more of good health and better, experience of that, of going through that versus just like trying to barely make it or having other things as well. Um, so yeah, I think that's really great. Let's talk a little bit too about some of the other personal development stuff that you've done as far as just, I know you're a very centered person, you're very focused. Like you said, you get around great people, but what are some practices you do to kind of center yourself or kind of, I guess maybe in the affirmation space or just in the clarifying your goals and clarifying what you want? Are there some practices that you do maybe daily or even annually, or what are some in between that you would do to kind of help get you focused?
Yeah, I think it's really encapsulated in my morning routine, which I call my morning success routine.
Nice.
So I wake up, I enjoy a cup of espresso. I immediately go outside, try to get light, even though I get up early, but trying to get first daylight is very important. I'm outside, and I start with a gratitude practice. So in my head, I'm reviewing, what I'm grateful for that day or what happened in the previous 24 hours. And that starts to get me centered. And then I actually move through a positive focus where I think about, what were my three most impactful wins that I had in the past 24 hours, or maybe it's in a given month or a quarter. But I'm building up that reinforcement, right, of, positive focus. And then that starts to get my mind going into, okay, what can I do next, right? Right. What are the next opportunities to really move the needle? How can I serve other people, even better? What bigger problem can I solve, right? So it's all about thinking, right? It's having this key thinking time.
Hmm.
And then I do a lot of cycling, so usually 90 minutes on the bike. And the best thing is, I get to be outdoors, Bronson, working on my health, and I'm innovating, I'm problem solving when you're working out. And when you work out, you have all the release of chemicals in your body. And so your thinking has so much more, it's more emotions attached to the ideas that you're thinking about. So when I come back, I'm really charged up about, what can I do next? What is it going to be that day? What is my main, focus for the day? And then after I work out, I hit the cold plunge. Then I meditate on my PEMF mat, which is really amazing, just really grounds you. Also manage your nervous system better. You can really down regulate much better. And then I'll probably do a little breath work. And then
Hmm.
I go into journaling and, setting my intention for the day. So that
Love it.
is literally the foundation for me to own my day and be super grounded and intentional.
Yeah, yeah, it is amazing um, when you have a good routine in the morning and you kind of have it all in there. Right? You got exercise, you've got your meditations, you've got your health stuff. I also have a cold plunge. I do a lot of running as well. And, just all this stuff is amazing because it helps you to, I think some of my best ideas come when I'm outside of the office and, when I'm actually out exercising or I'm doing something totally different. That's why I love traveling. Go to Everest Base Camp next month and in India as well. And so just doing some of that is great. Well, Dave, wanted to ask you a couple more questions, and then we're going to kind of wrap up here. But tell us, again, if you were to go back to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give to yourself when you were younger? I know you've had a lot of life, and you had your kids, and of course triplets all at once. That's a big life change as well. But what would you say? Hey, here's something, or what would you tell your kids? I guess, or what do you tell them? Hey, here's something you should consider.
It's really that, Bronson. It's that you are your biggest asset and you need to invest in yourself, right? Because the only thing that's holding you back is you. And it's whatever you want in life. It's creating that more freedom, deeper relationships, bigger experiences, all of those things. It's the only thing holding you back. How much money you're making, how much you're investing, how much mailbox money you have, it's all in your head, right? And I've seen countless examples of people. I mean, we have, let me just give you an interesting example, right? So we had someone join our mastermind group fairly recently. Same thing, right? He was taught by a financial planner, traditional finance, very successful entrepreneur, business owner, high income, doing really well, but he had all those traditional things. After a few months of our, learning and education and mindset and kind of just thinking about all of that, he was somewhat capital constrained, but he was looking to actually reduce his taxes and everything, and then learned how to actually purchase a short-term rental, reduce his taxes by over 100K in that year, and pay no money down because he did seller-backed financing, and then create a passive income stream.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, so, right, he did all of that with just thinking.
Yeah.
Right. And created money. So it's just such a great example. And then the numbers just keep getting bigger, right? When you're able to focus on this kind of, ROI type of exercises and change your thinking.
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, again, Henry Ford said thinking is hard work, which is why so few people do it, right? Actually, just give yourself time and space to think. Well, Dave, I just really acknowledge you for coming on the show today and for what you've created, for yourself, for your family, for your investors. And I just see you as someone who's really giving back to others and really trying to help folks. I mean, for a lot of us, there's a lot of things we could be doing with our time, but because there's a purpose there of really helping and giving back, I can see that in you and that you have a passion to really help others along the way. So I encourage everybody to reach out to Dave. And how can people, hear about your book and your podcast and hear what you're doing and follow your stuff, Dave?
Yeah, the easiest way, Bronson, if you want to get a free copy of the book, is just to go to holisticwealthstrategy.com. And you can download a free book. Or if you want to check out the podcast, it's Wealth Strategy Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy.
Awesome, man. Well, I have a copy of your book. It's on my list to read, so I appreciate that. And just again, appreciate you being a very abundant-minded guy. And we have a lot of similar friends and some similar groups as well. But appreciate you being here. And thanks again for joining the Mailbox Money Show. I'm looking forward to being on your show soon here as well. And we'll look forward to connecting again soon. So thanks so much for being here, Dave.
Yeah, really grateful for the opportunity, Bronson. Appreciate it.
Okay, so this interview I loved. It was talking really primarily what I got out of it was being willing to invest in yourself. Dave talked about his morning routine where he does exercise, he does all these different things in the cold plunge, and you don't have to go out and buy a cold plunge now, except it may really improve your life. And I love my cold plunge, but doing things that really invest in yourself, because if you invest in your health, you invest in taking time away, you invest in with your family, it's going to give you wealth that's not always physically tangible. It's not always like, hey, money in your pocket, but it actually will lead to more money in your pocket. So I found sometimes the idea of less really is more. If I can focus in on fewer things and do them well, then you can really see a lot of benefit from that. And then I love that he talked about too, in real estate, there's some stuff there, but really focused on some of these other things like energy and private equity and other types of deals that really allow for cash flow. And so that's something that's super interesting to us. We're doing deals, multiple deals right now that have cash flow involved. If you haven't joined our investment club, you go to bronsonequity.com, check that out. And I appreciate you taking the time to educate yourself. Really, I truly don't take it lightly. It's very humbling. It's honoring. It's great. It inspires me to want to grow more. So thank you for being here on the Mailbox Money Show. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode. You've been listening to the Mailbox Money Podcast. For more free resources, articles, and videos, go to bronsonequity.com. There you can download your copy of the special report, The Single Best Investment Strategy During and After a Pandemic. None of the information shared here is an offer to buy a specific investment, and this is for educational purposes only. Consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals and use your own common sense before making any investment decisions. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time for more Mailbox Money.